I'm 40 now, and an art teacher of mine told me something really important when I graduated high school. She said, don't ever quit using it because you will lose it. And I wouldn't say that set fear into me, but that set determination into me that no matter what's going on in my life, whether I'm in trouble with the law or I'm going through a divorce or I'm having children or I'm at a school meeting, like I can't give up. I can't give up while my heart beats. And that's why my heart beats. And the next 40 years of my life, there's going to be more art than there was in the first 40.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. SIG is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com. How do you prefer your eggs cooked in the morning?
Well, the way I prefer them is with a ton of butter and over easy.
See, I think the over easy, I end up with yolk in my mustache and face and everywhere else.
Well, I got a special way to I cut the yolk out and save it for last. I eat the white part and then I scoop up the yolk, and it's my goal to not drip anything anywhere.
Really?
Then just explosion in your mouth.
That's awesome. Well, like I was telling you, I've been working on perfecting the omelet, and it's not easy, dude. Like, it's so sensitive to temperature and time, and I think one of my biggest breakthroughs is I've been adding a little bit of water to the eggs before I cook them.
Makes it fluffier? Because you want it thin-ish.
I don't know what it does, but, man, it does make a big difference. Milk is the wrong move.
Yeah.
For sure.
It burns too fast, I think.
Yeah, that could be it. You've had a long career of many interesting jobs. I'm endlessly fascinated with the stories of the jobs that you've had. It seems like a long list. Let's start at the beginning. What was your first job?
Well, you say that all the time, and I wonder what is so interesting about the shit I've done with my wanderings. But my first job was when I was 11, living in Lost Teen, changing pipe for Patty Moffat. And it's not quite like your grandpa's story of walking uphill both ways, but I did ride my bike uphill both ways and cried all day long until it was done. It was it was like a quarter of a mile of pipe, and there was a swale in the field, and regardless of how hard I tried, I always missed my mark by at least 50 yards.
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't get fired, but being 11 and trying to walk through grass fields as high as your chest and keep one end of the pipe up or the other end of the pipe up, and just being so frustrated and cold, and just going home and getting back in my bed with wool socks on and watching an episode of Oprah on this tiny little TV I used to have just for comfort. But I don't know, it kind of like shot me in a trajectory where I've been working since I was 11.
Yeah.
And you can stuff a lot of stuff in there when you're 40 and you've been working since you were 11.
It's true. And that was a very normal thing. Like, that's a normal time for
It's a good time
for a kid here to start
Yeah.
working full time in the summer.
I was tough enough, but still, like, that summer I shook off, it kind of shook off the baby in me.
Yeah.
And that was a good idea that my dad made me do that.
For those who don't know, changing pipe is changing irrigation pipe. And these are hand lines that are, what are they, 40 feet long?
Yeah, they got to be something like that. Are they 40?
I don't know.
They seem like they're 100 feet long.
So it's a great big long aluminum pipe.
Yeah.
And, a long line is a quarter mile. So you've got a lot of sections in there, and you'll start out and you'll move the first pipe down to a different riser, something that's coming out of the main line. You'll attach your pipe to that. You got to have a little bit of water flowing through it.
Right, but not too much.
Not too much. And then you go and grab your other pipe, and you're moving it a distance so that the sprinklers are hitting new grass.
Right.
So one section at a time, you move it. You got to keep your pipeline running in a straight line. And it's quite a process. And, changing for a little kid, changing a quarter mile line, and a lot of times you're changing it twice a day. That's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Or real close to it.
It'll kick your butt.
And, you carrying that pipe with both ends drooping through the grass is really hard. I always wondered how the heck kids in other places did it with corn.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Boy, I'd like to hear that story, actually.
It'd be pretty miserable. But what were you getting paid?
10 cents a pipe.
10 cents a pipe.
Yeah.
And we could probably figure this out, how many sections are in a quarter mile. It's not important. It's not a lot of money.
It's not a lot.
It feels like it as a little kid.
But you could buy a new bike. You could buy a new bike seat for your Redline 340 so you look cool riding your bicycle. Like, you could do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you could buy some arrows that you'd lose shooting at squirrels and birds
some
and whatnot.
Smoke bombs for sure.
Uh-huh. So what happened next? What was your next job?
Well, getting through high school was a job, but my next job I didn't get paid for a lot of these.
Yeah.
That still constitutes as a job, I believe. But the second thing I did was, again, on my dad's request, he showed up when I was 15, just turned 15, with a pickup. And it was a 1971 Ford. And if I'd have known how hard I was going to have to work to pay that sucker off, I would have told him to take a hike. But I told him I would work to pay it off, and Dad hauled hay at that time, and he had me bucking bales and loading the trailer. And so I'd go to school every day and then get off school, and he'd pick me up in his semi-truck at the bottom of the hill, and we'd go to some guy's farm and load like 27 tons of hay. And Dad would pick them all up with a farm awl that picked up 12 bales at a time and drop them on the truck bed. And then it was my job to sort them out and put them in there so they could make it either all the way down to Horse Creek or over to La Grande or wherever they had to go.
And these are 110, 120-pound hay bales?
I was 120. The hay bales, when we did alfalfa, the hay bales were 125, so they outweighed me by 5 pounds. And Dad's only words of encouragement was, "You're getting behind." And so that one I started taking some pride in my job after that, because you got to pack them just right, and then when you're done and you got to go unload them, load 27 tons on a truck, ride with Dad to the barn and unload 27 tons in a barn so that it doesn't fall over on whoever farmer's feeding the hay. And by the time I was done with school and all that, that's all over 50 tons of hay.
Yeah.
And but you get to see what you did, and you get to see that big long truck loaded up with hay, and then you get to see the barn fill up. And my dad invited his cousin to help one time because we had quite a bit to do, and he must have been 40 at the time, and I mean, I was just a little whelp, and I stacked hay all the way around that guy.
Yeah.
He couldn't keep up.
Were you a hay hook guy or a strings
I
guy?
like hay hooks, yeah.
I'm team hay hooks too.
Yeah, all the way. Do we got time for a story about a hay hook disaster?
Yeah.
Okay. Was helping my grandpa unload hay once, and he was probably 67 at the time. And you got to be careful with hay hooks because you're up there 7 tiers high on a truck that's already 5.5 feet off the ground. Luckily, we were down a few tiers, and my grandpa had hay hooks in, went to pitch it off, and the one hay hook hooked in the bale and drug him off the hay truck, and I thought I saw the end of my grandpa's life going through the air. And luckily, a lot of times when you're loading hay, there's 2.5 feet of old cushy hay on the barn floor. So that's totally what saved him. But holy cow, that was scary.
Yeah, you got to know when to just give up and let go of the hook.
Let go of the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's only one way to learn that, and it's the type of thing that needs to be learned more than once.
Yeah.
I had hay hooks that just had T-handles on top, and you could swivel them a little bit.
Oh, nice.
And
I never tried those.
I liked that, and all the other ranchers around here use these great big contraptions that looked like they're made for Andre the Giant, and they didn't swivel at all and weighed about 6 pounds apiece. I wasn't into that. I liked my little speed hooks.
Yeah.
These things look like a question mark, an upside down question mark, and that's what you grab the hay bales with.
Yeah, totally. And they're sharp and dangerous.
Yeah, when they pop out of a bale, a lot of times there's quite a bit of energy. I've definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it does allow you to save your back and use leverage to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're 115, 120 pounds and you're lifting a 120-pound bale, all you got is leverage.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to learn how to use your knees.
Yeah.
So how long did you buck hay for?
Well, bucked hay for more than $900 worth, I'll tell you that. But probably 2 summers, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mrs. Whitty used to hire whichever kids were, flunking health class. And basically bribe us into stacking bales for her. Yeah.
It's no joke. I had a little bit of poison oak under my armpit from swimming, and bucked hay that day, and swat clear to my ankles. Well, guess what the poison oak did too?
Yeah.
Followed the sweat. I don't think I ever sweat so much in my life in any job in the future than moving bales.
I don't know if you caught the episode with little Aubrey Barton from up there in the Salmon River or not, but she was up there just a couple of years ago, swathing a field by hand, and
Really?
and stacking that hay loose in a barn with horses and feeding horses all winter long with it, and that rattlesnake infested thing.
Oh, I remember seeing the advertisement for that.
Yeah,
Nice.
she's a tough gal.
That's awesome.
Like
yeah.
I'll complain with the best of them about how much it sucks to buck hay in the summertime, but at least I didn't have to cut it by hand.
Hey, yeah.
Holy smokes!
Yeah.
And there's no rattlesnakes up here. There. You spent a lot of time around rattlesnakes.
I kind of am a kindred spirit, so we have an agreement.
What's the agreement?
The agreement is, if you stay far enough away from me, we can live in harmony.
Okay, and then what's the disagreement?
The disagreement ends pretty quickly, usually.
All right. So what's the next job?
The next job was actually running equipment for a farmer out here. And that was a learning experience for sure, which also was the last time that I worked on trade instead of cash. Mm-hmm. But that was a hard lesson for me to learn, was to fight for what I was worth, because I put in a lot of hours on that farm run swather and baler and moving hay and all that, changing pipe and all that stuff. And I think I walked away that summer with $400 in my pocket. And I told my dad, I was like, this is BS, man. Like, $400 for all of what I did. And Dad's like, well, I bet you won't do that again. And he was right. But I never, I still didn't run my mouth about how much money I wanted to make. I just made sure that they knew if I wasn't feeling like I was there for a reason, I had other places to go.
Yeah.
But, boy, that sucked because I put in a lot of hours and looked back and thought, man, I got screwed, but I wasn't boisterous enough or brave enough to stand up for myself, so that's the hand I was dealt. It's a good lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how the way you value money changes over time. And it definitely goes up and down for me. Like sometimes I'm pretty darn excited about finding, $1 in a pair of pants.
Yeah.
And other times it's like, oh, whatever.
Well, that $900 pickup that I paid off the year before, it breaks.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, from paying for a bicycle seat, I need a new motor.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't keep my foot out of the floor anyway, so went through a couple of those motors, and they cost a lot of money.
Yeah. But you learned how to work on a pickup.
Absolutely. I remember Dad came home one day, and I had the whole thing tore apart, and he said, "What in the hell are you doing?" I said, well, it was making a funny noise, and I had to get to the bottom of it. And he said, well, you got to the bottom of it, but none of the parts are in any sort of, order, so how you going to put it back together? And I thought, well, I guess I hadn't thought that far ahead, but it worked out. Got it back together.
Yeah.
With a little help from a genius.
Uh-huh. Got her running. Was it still making the noise?
Nope.
You have any parts left over?
No, because we just had to discard that whole attempt and get a new motor.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah. In my defense, I was left unsupervised.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not on you. Well, what was the next one?
So that was about 15, 16. And the next thing that happened was a recruiter came to the high school and talked to some kids, and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, but I knew sure as hell I wasn't going to stick around here and be a loser town guy. So he came and said what he had to say, and then came back a second time to see if anybody bit, and I said, I'm down to see what you got to say. So he took me to La Grande, and we fished, and he told me about the adventures I could have in the Navy. And I signed up as the day I turned 17 and got my parents' permission. And 4 days after I graduated high school, I caught a bus to Boise from La Grande and did got all that stuff. And then I joined the Navy, 4 days out of high school. So that was my next adventure, which lasted 5 years.
Did you have an MOS designated when you went in?
Well, me and a buddy joined together, and he's actually still in. And we were best friends at the time. We thought this would be a cool thing to do as friends, and maybe it would keep us together and we could see the world and stuff. And so we went over and did our little, I guess they take your ASVAB and whatever, and you go over there and talk to somebody, and they tell you this is what your options are. And so we went over to with no idea what we were getting into. Never even opened a book about it. But they told him they really wanted him to be on a sub and be a nuke because he was just incredibly good at math. And they came to me and they asked me what I thought I wanted to be. I told them I didn't know, and they said, that's good because you could be a CB and that's about it. And I said, well, what does a CB do? And they said, well, first of all, you don't go on a boat. And I said, that sounds great. Let's do it. So actually, my buddy passed on being a nuke and joined the Seabees too, and we did what we planned to do and saw the world. We entered on the buddy system, but that pretty much means, listen, this is the first time your dreams are going to be shattered, because you guys won't see each other for the first part, but we kept crossing paths and spending a lot of time in different parts of the country together, and we're not friends anymore, but we always have that to share. Like, what a wild little thing we got to do and meet all over the world.
Yeah, that is cool. You know, Marines love to talk trash about each other, about other service branches. In the Navy, we definitely talk trash about, except that Marines love corpsmen and Seabees.
We seem to get along,
Yeah.
and honestly, the Seabees talk trash about the Navy. Because we are not alike.
So what does the Seabee do?
Well, a Seabee is a mobile construction battalion, so we're basically, we're a construction company in a way. The fun thing about it for me was that we weren't so disassociated with the soldier part of it. There was a real cool mix of, and it was right up my alley, because as soon as I showed up, I started to meet a whole bunch of people from little tiny towns in Maine that their families were loggers, and in Mississippi, and their families were farmers, and like all these people from little tiny towns with the same background as me, working on cars and just monkeying around with stuff as kids. Obviously that it was a draw for us because it made sense. It was the same thing we'd grown up doing, and it was the same thing that we'd planned on doing in the future. I joined to be a mechanic, and that's paid off all over the place. But what we did was and I think this is why the Marines and the Seabees like each other, because a lot of times we show up when things are not quite on fire yet, and put bridges in places and build bases, and then the Marines fill that base up, and that's like, then we're kind of we're out of there after that. But like, it's really fun to see that whole evolution go down.
Yeah.
And there's a cool history with Seabees, and I'm not super up on it, but just the fact that every piece of equipment has an M16 holder in it was obviously right up my alley, because every pickup in the high school had a gun rack in it. So it made sense, and fate would have that that's where I ended up, and just had a ball.
Yeah, Marines will, start with nothing, dig a hole in the ground and live in it. And then when Seabees show up, you provide us with every luxury and security that we have.
Right. Build the cafeteria and all this. It's really fun.
Yeah. Put up HESCO barriers and keep us safe from small arms, and then, stand up some buildings so we've got operating centers and a place to sleep at night. Yeah, a tremendous asset. And, one of the bigger missions that I had in Afghanistan was this big bridge mission where we overwatched while Seabees built a bridge and connected two districts of Afghanistan, which, might as well be, like North and South Korea.
Yeah.
They were a warring people, and a tribal people, and we wanted them to have an opportunity to vote. And because of this river that flowed between the two districts, the only way they were going to be able to vote in the country's first election was if they had a bridge to cross to get to a voting center. Like, what a powerful thing the Seabees did there. It's incredible.
To see it in motion. I flew over in 2005 or late 2004. Whacked my head pretty hard, so that whole bit of my life is a bit of a blur. But it was somewhere right around there. We flew over to Kuwait City and drove, several miles through the desert, showed up to nothing, and then watch what I saw getting loaded on C-130s getting unloaded here in the middle of what I would call nothing in my experience, and 3 semi trucks roll in, start, basically transforming, and by the end of the day, we have a concrete plant, and we're building the helipad, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
this is awesome.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Did you enjoy your time in the Navy?
It was a love-hate relationship, as I think a lot of people might say, but it was definitely the best of times and the worst of times. I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I absolutely loved it. It was what I needed at 18, I think, for me personally.
Yeah.
And it just gets more, it's more of a fonder memory every year. And I don't, the older I get, that's just going to be a real fond memory of mine. Because if you don't like crazy, maybe it wouldn't be that fun. And I've seen some people not have fun at it, but it was exciting and adventurous and dangerous and just Aries' dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had a blast.
Transitioning out of the military is a tough time. It's
a whole different story.
Awkward time.
Yeah.
How'd that go for you?
I would say that it took me, I was in the military for 5 years, and it took me 5 years to even grasp what the hell was going on. I remember coming back into Joseph, where I went to high school and stuff, and I just remember being what I was 2 months ago in the military, and I don't know, everyone was asking me why I was on fire, and I couldn't figure out why they weren't.
Yeah.
So I probably lost some friends in that transition, but once I realized that they probably weren't friends in the beginning anyway, and then I started to meet veterans, then I have a whole different community, and now I feel a lot safer now. So
what changed that helped make you feel safer?
Definitely meeting veterans and creating that community with them. I knew that I didn't have to explain myself to them. I didn't have to prove myself to them.
Right.
They already knew what I'd been through, and I knew what they'd been through, and it's a silent agreement.
Yeah. It's nice also in that kind of company around other vets, like you can say anything. I've never seen a less offendable population.
Well, we've heard it all.
Yeah. So if it's on your mind,
the civilian world does
Yeah.
not, that's where we clashed.
Yeah.
They didn't they just didn't. Whew. That was difficult. Yeah. I haven't thought about that in quite a while, because I've been in a good spot for a long time now. So,
what jobs did you have getting out?
Well, that's where the real adventure for me started.
Okay.
I've always been into art. I remember when I was 8 years old, my uncle, I got home from football practice. I must have been just a tiny little peewee, and he picked me up and shook me around by my face mask of my football helmet, and I was so mad, and I got a piece of paper and pen, and I drew this mad person with blood vessel-y eyes and all this stuff, and I realized at 8 years old, wow, this is a real good way for me to funnel my issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I kept up with that. And my stepdad told me you'll never make a living at it. And I was always bullheaded and refused to admit that you couldn't make a living doing artwork. And, joined the Navy to be a mechanic, because that sounded like a smart thing to do. Got out, and just by chance ran into a guy named Chuck Frazier and he asked me if I could help him for 6 months doing some blacksmithing. And at that time, I had no idea what he even meant. So I went up there and told him honestly that I knew 2 other people that I was acquaintance with that would probably be better at this than me. And asked an uncle, what should I do? And I remember my uncle said, 6 months ain't going to kill you. And so I went up to his shop and walked into the shop, but also stepped back in time and also stepped right into my element. And then 2 weeks into it, realized that this was going to be my thing. And that 6 months turned into 4 years. And then I went to college for a 3.5-year spell to get some things figured out, and then came back for another 4 years. And I am working on going back there now. So that's been almost 10 years of my life doing blacksmithing, and the reason I fell in love with it was because it joined all the hard work that I'd done as a kid and all the artwork that I had passion for, and it just smushed them together in a Play-Doh liquid, almost liquid metal, fury of violence and welding and smashing, and what you come out on the other end was beauty and harmony. Like, what? This shit is written for me. This is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah.
Not many people get to find that for themselves.
No, I don't know even how to explain it because I didn't seek it out. It found me.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it found me is because I believe in passion, and I believe in love, and I believe in dreaming, and I refuse to give them up. And the universe provided exactly what I needed to do all of those things.
Tell me about some of the things that you've made during the last decade that you're proud of. Because when people think of blacksmithing, they probably think of some dude hunkered over a horse's hoof in like a medieval documentary or something.
Yeah.
They don't know.
So learning how to run a Baudry trip hammer is a thing of its own. And what I mean by a Baudry trip hammer is, if you have ever seen like a paper seal stamp or a good sized sewing machine, you would understand the mechanics of a head that works up and down, and a motor that would propel this thing. The Baudry trip hammer that I walked up to and fell in love with, and aptly named Black Betty, was built in 1928, and she has a canvas slack belt that when you put tension on a big ring foot pedal, it tightens the slack belt, and a 250 pound or 300 pound, depending on which hammer I was using, a 300 pound head comes up and down, which if I mash on the pedal, that 350 pound head will come, or 300 pound head will come up and down 180 times a minute. So, you can touch the metal and texture it, or you can 180 times a minute is like 300 pounds hitting like that. Like that's a lot of movement, and you can create your own heat. So you heat the metal up, and if you cause enough friction, you can continue that heat for a long time. I wouldn't say as long as you want, but for a long time. And the better you are at that, the more you can keep metal out of the fire and create your own friction. So once I learned how to really move with that machine, got to do some amazing stuff. And I would say that the most amazing thing that I ever got to do was for a couple that lives here in my hometown, and I really enjoy their company. And they wanted not a spiral staircase, but a curved staircase. And we built this curved staircase that goes up to a second floor. So it's about 11 feet high or 12 feet high or whatever. Comes down in a curve, which not a full spiral, but kind of a half a spiral. And it has, I want to say, 40 piles of grapes that there's probably 25 grapes in each pile of grapes that were also hand forged, and each leaf was hand forged, and there's probably 120 leaves on this thing. And there's some Art Nouveau scroll work coming down the stairs, and the stair treads were made by my predecessor, Chuck Frazier, the dude. They were made by him out of some old barnwood that had been, soaked in manure and piss for 40 years from cows and shaved off and just had this purple and yellow stain to them. But when I step back from it and look at it, I can't even believe that I made it. It's beautiful. And I worked and slaved on that thing for 6 months, and when we installed it, I really felt a hole in my chest for a while, and it was almost like losing a good friend or something, because I'd come to work and have a great day, loving this thing, putting grapes together, making Art Nouveau scrolls, and then one day I would just struggle so hard and not get anywhere. And it was really like a relationship. Well, that staircase kind of got us noticed a bit, and we ended up in our little 10-year span. We got published in 2 hardback books that are sold worldwide called Ironwork Today. And we have a 3-page spread in one and a 2-page spread in the other. And I mean, I never saw that coming. But that staircase stands out in my mind, and there's 6, 7, 8 more jobs that were amazing like that we were able to get our hands on, and I just feel fortunate to even have touched them.
So is that the hard luck?
No, that has nothing to do with hard luck. That was Frazier Ironworks, and he's still in operation, a little slower than he was before, but he'll never quit that.
Yeah.
Because he found his passion as well.
When I got my my Marine Corps officer sword, I showed it to my dad, and it was made in Germany. It's beautiful, just beautiful. And I said, I don't know, I just don't see stuff like this made in the U.S. I don't know if it could be. And he said Chuck could make one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, get off on a tangent of Chuck, but I don't know if I've ever seen anybody else who could figure something out. And we ran into some problems building that kind of stuff. And I mean, one of the main things that I'm thankful for that I got from Chuck is the ability to figure it out, because it has to be made.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about this ironwork is it's not like you can go buy this piece. I mean, you have to make it. You get this 2-foot chunk of 1.5-inch square steel, and you beat the holy living shit out of it until it's 15 feet long and, tapers into a spike, and then you bend it into something that looks like water and movement. Like, that just doesn't make sense to a lot of people, how that process happens. But it literally heat this steel up to a taffy and do what you want with it. And it's has so many cool aspects to it, because there is art, and there is violence, and it's fun.
It is fun.
And there's fire.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have really limited exposure to this kind of stuff, but my dad and I have made a few knives together, and we didn't have the right equipment, but we had a torch and some scrap metal and an anvil and some hammers and some grinders, and by God, if that's what you got, you can make a knife.
Absolutely.
And those are really precious memories. Just sitting there, trying to figure something out together and, beating a new life into an old piece of metal with your dad, like, doesn't get a lot better.
Mm-mm.
It's pretty cool.
I encourage anybody who can try it, get your hands on it.
What other jobs have you had? Well, actually, I got another question before I want to ask you that.
Yeah.
I know that's your preferred form of art, but it's not your only form of art, because you also paint, you draw, you play music. What am I missing?
Well, I don't discriminate. If you can consider it artwork, I try to get my hands on it.
Tell me about that helicopter blade.
Oh, jeez. So I ended up with an offer, or the opportunity to paint on a helicopter blade, a mural, and I think from base to tip, this helicopter blade was 18 feet long, and I have never painted an oil painting in my life. And I was supposed to paint 18 feet of it all of a sudden. And I probably went and sat and stared at that helicopter blade for 3 weeks before I was brave enough to touch a paintbrush to it. And, man, once I did, it just did what it does. And I took a video of it when I was done, and it was for a firefighting. It was for a firefighting office over in LeGrand.
The rappel crew.
Yeah,
it's actually a crew that the crew that I rappelled on.
Nice.
Became that crew.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So because they combined a couple of them there, but yeah, that was, and some of the people that are still there were guys that I grew up fighting fire with.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So they kind of wanted a day in the life. And so I started the beginning of the painting with some high mountains and some thunderclouds and a couple lightning strikes. And as you scan along, you get a first-person view of a guy backing out of a helicopter with all of his gear on. You can see the ground below him. As you keep scanning, you see like a wild and scenic river, and then mountains that are engulfed in flames. And as you keep scanning, there's firefighters in there. There's a plane dropping retardant. And then at the end of the propeller blade, there's kind of like this beautiful sunset and a helicopter, like, I don't know, kind of giving you the idea, like, we left, we fought the fire, and there's peace at the end. Like, it ended up being a day in the life, I feel like. And I was really proud of it because I had never painted with oil before. So
your ability to get shit right the first time is astonishing to me.
I don't know where that comes from, James. I really don't.
All right. Well, how many songs have you written?
5.
5.
I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you be willing to play one for us?
I would love to play one.
All right. I know which one Lander would request.
Uh-huh.
Same one as me.
Uh-huh. I like playing that one.
All right.
But as your question, how do I get it right the first time, is probably because the conversation in my head never quits. And it is a pain in the ass to live with me. Just ask me.
Well, I don't think I would have the guts to look at a rotor blade for 3 weeks.
Well, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to touch paint to that thing and know that I'm probably not going to be able to put it back to zero if I can't do this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it worked out to my advantage, I guess. So, this song is, I do want a disclaimer on this because obviously I don't support domestic violence in any way, shape, or form. But I grew up around it, and it is a thing that happens. And that being said, I also love songs about desperados and cowboy movies and all sorts of stuff that this song is about. I'm going to get my pick, though, because the callus on my hand is not working out for me. There's a man lying dead and he's got a bullet in his head, and I'm sure it wasn't his goal in life to die. But he lies there just the same, and nobody knows his name, and I wonder if anyone back home will cry. I've got my pistol by my side, and she's a nickel-plated 45, and the devil's my right hand as I'm leaving town. I'm running hard and I'm running fast. I've got to make this pony last, 'cause if they catch me now, they'll gun me down. I came early home from work. I grabbed a beer and went to change my shirt, and I swung the bedroom door open with my hand. In the room now there were three. He saw her and she saw me, and I grabbed my pistol I keep on the nightstand. I went wild like a feral hog. I kinda lost my lid like a rabid dog, and I scattered his thoughts all over the bedroom floor. Grabbed my jacket and my sleeping bag, and I slapped that bitch for making me sad. And then I tore out of there in my 69 two-tone Ford. Well, Mexico's where my mind be, and they're gonna go there if they're gonna find me. And I just might make it there by the middle of the night. Way down south where the billy goats grow, underneath the brim of a sombrero. Senor, tu quieres tequila? Yeah, I think I might. And now that posse's 20 deep as I jump into the creek, and they're closing in now and chewing on my cuff. I jump up, I gotta make my run. I hear the report of the gun, and the bullet hits me hard and I hit the dust. And now I'm choking in the sand with a smoking 6-gun in my hand, and the blood that's on my vest is cooled by the breeze. And my breath is fading fast. I don't know just how long I'll last, but the sun reminds me of home coming through the trees.
Gives me chills, buddy. Every time.
Thank you. That's my favorite part about that song is it gives me chills.
Yeah. When you're writing something like that, the courage it takes to make it first person, right? Like you're the guy that dies in the end.
Yeah. I gotta be or isn't real.
Okay. It's a bold move.
I don't know how else I'd do it.
Yeah. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. So when I say that I think that your jobs are interesting. It's because they don't make sense to me. Like the way that you grew up and the labor that you had to do as a little kid and then in the Navy and the shit that you had to go through afterwards and coming through all that, it doesn't line up with a guy that looks at an oil painting that they've never done before or even attempted before, stare at a rotor blade for 3 weeks and then make something that everyone who looks at is still talking about. That is a monument. And can also write and play a song like that. And can also, make these incredible, exquisite blacksmithing works of art and then go out and climb in an excavator and treat that thing like the bucket is your paintbrush and do art with an excavator. It's amazing. It's amazing to me, and it doesn't quite add up. I don't think there's anyone else like you.
Oh, man. Well, I appreciate that. That is an honor, and I wish I had an answer for you.
Yeah. So, we've talked a little bit about what's next in your life, and I know that you want to move more so into blacksmithing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that going to look like?
Well, I don't know because I've never known. I've never known what any of it's going to look like. But like you said, if I stare at it long enough, it'll come out. Yep. And I think it'll be all right.
Yeah.
I'd be an idiot if I said I don't have a plan. But for me to try to articulate what's in my brain and my heart, I can't spell it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
And I know that I am capable, and I know I got the passion behind it, and there's no reason why it won't work out like I want it to.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too, because I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah. None of us do.
Yeah.
None of us do.
Yeah.
A plan is just a prediction.
Yeah, sure. And there's just, I'm 40 now, and an art teacher of mine told me something really important when I graduated high school. She said, don't ever quit using it because you will lose it. And I wouldn't say that set fear into me, but that set determination into me that no matter what's going on in my life, whether I'm in trouble with the law or I'm going through a divorce or I'm having children or I'm at a school meeting, like I can't give up. I can't give up why my heart beats, and that's why my heart beats. And the next 40 years of my life, there's going to be more art than there was in the first 40.
There's an interesting relationship between art and labor in this area, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah.
Because people here are tough and they work really freaking hard. But there's also this art scene, which in a lot of places, the people that are involved in art are not tough people. Not tough in a traditional way. And I'm not taking anything away from them by saying that.
Yeah.
It's just not tough in the way that I mean the word tough. And I think people understand that.
Well, it has to do with the beauty that we're surrounded with every day. And by the way, I live in Arizona. You should all move there.
It's Utah.
Yeah. But we're surrounded by beautiful things all day, and that beauty, it creates creative people, I think.
But within that beauty is also
struggle,
some struggle and some violence from nature as well. Like Paul said it extremely well. We're talking about like what you have in your rig with you all the time, and it's like most places aren't like that. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, here the weather has consequences.
Oh boy.
And I think that a lot of people don't deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try falling in the Snake River at 18 degrees.
Sure.
The weather has consequences.
Yeah. All kinds of weather does. But the people that come here just for the aesthetic beauty, that same beauty just crushes them within a couple years and they leave.
Yeah.
They don't handle it. But even like the like the art teachers, like you're talking about. We had wonderful art teachers here in all the little schools here we did.
Yeah, I got really lucky.
Yeah, to the extent that, my thing in art that I was the best at in high school was pottery. Loved it. Loved ceramics. So when I got to college, I had to take some art classes for, I think they're just trying to make more money off of you. But I had to take some art classes. So I was like, I'll take ceramics. I already know how to do that. And I would go in and work at night. I came back after, a night of throwing and, had to turn in a project. And the professor accused me of cheating, and he thought I'd had somebody else come in and do this stuff for me, which was a tremendous compliment.
Yeah,
kind of.
Same story.
Yeah.
I mean, the day they gave me keys to the studio, they couldn't kick me out of there.
Yeah.
And that place was a wreck around my little area, and I was in there till 3:30 in the morning. And like you said, I would turn in something, and the art teacher would be like, bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, bullshit yourself.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I came here to do, dude. And, man, that also, as a fond memory from the military is the reason that I was able to go to college and at 32 and drive it home that art was going to be in me and come out of me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I don't know if it's important for everybody, but for some people it's critical. You've got to use that part of your brain. You've just got to, otherwise the rest of your life doesn't work right.
I'd be so miserable.
Yeah.
If I couldn't do that.
I need to throw pots more
yeah.
often.
When was the last time you touched it?
I went up to the LH Ranch, Jacob
right.
Hostlocker's place, and his dad was a tanker in Germany.
Yeah.
And he loves tanks. He loves the military. And he's hosted veterans up there a few times. And he had some artists, I think, that had flown in from South Korea, and they were doing these, exquisite porcelains. And,
yeah, I really like the veteran show.
Stuff that, cost a gajillion dollars.
Yeah.
And they had some, I don't know my way around porcelain at all, but they had some clay there. And they asked if I wanted to throw something. And I made a bowl, and I expected them to just throw it in the trash, and they they did the rest of the work, and they glazed it for me and sent it back to me. I do love it. There's a really good feeling to me of wedging a piece of clay, centering it. I think is really helpful and powerful, because there's very few things in our life that we can physically manipulate or even emotionally manipulate to a center. Sure. But you can do that with clay. And then opening that up and turning it into something that's functional and beautiful is a powerful thing.
Oh, there's definitely
really
power in there.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's centered, it's balanced. You open it up. Like there's a lot of emotion involved in that, whether you feel it at the time or not. The process is very meditative.
Yep, sure is. Man, this has been fun.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
This is why I wake up, because my blood's pumping, my fingers are tingly. Like, yeah, thanks a ton. I appreciate it.
Where can people follow along with what you're doing and maybe buy some blacksmithing or some art from you?
Well, you're going to have to come find me for now.
Yeah.
But in the future, I was just looking at my Instagram page today and be like, that's a joke. And that's just like, I will figure it out, but I'll tell you that marketing myself is not one of my high points. And if it wasn't for people's constant push, I wouldn't be playing this guitar. Like, it's not that I don't believe in myself or anything. It's just that this is what I do, and I don't understand why people love it so much. And as I get more business-minded in my own life, I start to realize that there is time in my life to take my marketing seriously so that it can create an avenue for me to do more of what I love. So I guess stay tuned, and I'll help you find me, I guess.
Okay. In the meantime, like you've got some access to Chuck's shop right now, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to propose.
Do it.
While you're on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you could forge a pretty cool bottle opener.
Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
think so.
So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to commission you to forge a bottle opener, and I'm going to buy it from you, and then I'm going to send it to somebody who writes a review of this show in the next 2 weeks.
I challenge accepted.
Okay. All right. So, folks, if you go to Apple Podcasts, Six Ranch Podcast, you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can rate and review the show. Just write something in there that this is the show that you listen to, and that's why you're reviewing it. If you've already reviewed the show, grab somebody else's phone and write a review with that one. And and then I'll pick a good review, and I'm gonna send you a bottle opener that Mr. Lyle Witherrite is gonna forge for us.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you guys for appreciating art.
Yeah, thank you, Lyle.
Thanks, James.
I'm working on building a house this year, which is something that I know nothing about, and I love that. It's exciting. Everything is a new challenge, and there's lots of challenges that pop up. The other day, we were laying out rebar and getting ready to pour concrete for the foundation of the shop that's going to be next to the house. And one of the guys that was there that was helping, one of the construction crewmen, I looked over and he had a Stanley thermos sitting on the end of the trailer. I said, "How do you like that thing?" And he goes, "Oh, I love it. I've had it for a decade." It's like, if you find any environment where people are out there working hard with their hands outside, no matter the conditions, you're probably going to see a Stanley product there. It's something that just goes with that blue collar labor, because that's what this product is doing. It is out there working just as hard as you are. It's going to be there as long as you are. It's going to be there after you're done. It's something that I feel passionate about with every piece of gear that I take either into the woods or into the workplace. Like, it's got to be able to outwork me, and I work really hard myself. If you are also a hard worker, and I'm sure that you are, then you could probably appreciate the same type of gear. If you go to stanley1913.com and you use the discount code 6RANCH, that's the number 6 and the word ranch, you can get 25% off just about any of their products. And I encourage you to do that. They're a great supporter of this show and great supporter of this audience. Again, I love you guys, and I just want to pass this discount and the savings on to you. If you want something from Stanley, I encourage you to get it. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at Six Ranch Podcast or me at Six Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the Six Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.